You know, there are some books that pretty much everyone has heard of, but almost no one has actually read. And when it comes to the Kama Sutra, what we think we know, well, it's usually just the tiniest tip of a huge and very surprising iceberg. Okay, so let's just start with a super simple question. When you hear those two words, Kama Sutra, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Go on, be honest. For most of us, it's probably going to be something like this, right? An ancient, illustrated manual of exotic, maybe even acrobatic sex positions. A book that's all about, physical pleasure. For centuries, that's been the reputation. But what if I told you that's not just incomplete, it's almost totally wrong? Let's just go straight to the source. This is what the author, Vatsyayana, actually said about his own work. See? He's talking about virtue, wealth, and pleasure. And the ultimate goal? Mastery over your senses, not slavery to them. This one quote, right here, it cracks open the door to what this incredible text is really all about. So hang on, because over the next few minutes, we're going to peel back all those layers of myth. We'll dig into the 3 core aims of life that are its foundation. We'll check out its shockingly detailed guide to daily life, explore the advice on relationships, uncover its role as a pretty surprising social guide, and finally, get to the bottom of what the real Kama Sutra is all about. All right, first things first, let's really deconstruct this thing. See, the idea most of us have in our heads, it's basically the result of centuries of bad translations and people just cherry-picking the juicy parts. The reality is so much more structured and, well, bigger. I mean, the difference between the myth and the reality, it is just night and day. On one side, you've got the myth, a book about sex, all about positions. On the other, the reality, a guide to living a good, balanced, successful life broken down into 7 totally different sections. So the real goal isn't just pleasure, it's balance. Balance between everything life throws at you. And get this, just look at the 7 parts of the actual book. Okay, so part 2 on sexual union, yeah, that's the one everyone's heard of. But look, it's just one part out of 7. The rest of it, it's all about finding a wife, how to be a good partner, social rules, even how to be more attractive to people. It's basically a complete playbook for your personal and social life. Okay, so how does all this stuff fit together? Well, to really get the Kama Sutra, you've got to understand the philosophy at its heart. Vatsyayana built this whole guide around what he called the 3 essential aims of a good life. First up, and this is the big one, is dharma. This is all about virtue, your duty, doing the right thing. It's about following the rules of society and being a good person, not because you'll get something out of it, but just because it's the right thing to do. Think of it as the moral foundation for everything else. Next, you've got artha. This is all the practical stuff, making money, buying property, having security, even making good friends. It's about building a stable, prosperous life for yourself, and importantly, protecting and growing what you've built. And then finally, we get to kama. And yeah, this is where all the confusion comes from. Kama is pleasure, sure, but it's way bigger than just sex. It's about enjoying the world with all 5 of your senses. So, listening to music, eating great food, seeing beautiful art. That's all kama. Sex is in there, but it's just one slice of this huge pie of sensory enjoyment. But here's the absolute key. There's a hierarchy. The book says it loud and clear. Virtue is better than wealth, and wealth is better than pleasure. The whole point is to chase after all 3, but in the right order. You can't let your pursuit of pleasure get in the way of your prosperity or, most importantly, your moral duties. Okay, so let's shift gears from all that high-level philosophy and get down to the real nitty-gritty. Because this is where the Kama Sutra starts to feel less like some ancient dusty text and more like, a lifestyle blog from 2,000 years ago. It gives ridiculously specific advice on how a well-off citizen should live their life. First off, your home. Vatsyayana describes the perfect setup. It's near water, it has a garden with swings, and it's split into 2 rooms. And check out the details for that outer room. A super soft bed, fresh flowers, a lute for music, a drawing board for art, even books. This is a space designed for a refined, cultured life. And the daily schedule he lays out, it's just as detailed. You start with grooming, perfumes, ointments. After work in the morning, the afternoon is all about leisure. And I'm talking specific leisure. Teaching your parents to talk, napping, just hanging out with friends. How cool is that? Then the evening is for music and, waiting for your date. It's this incredible picture of a super organized, pleasant life. Naturally, any good guide to life has to talk about relationships, right? And the Kama Sutra's advice goes way beyond the bedroom. It covers the entire arc, from that very first spark of attraction all the way to the complicated reality of married life. And the advice on how to woo someone, it's really systematic and honestly kinda sweet. It's all about spending time together, playing games like hide and seek. It's also pretty strategic, like you're supposed to become friends with her inner circle. And gifts aren't just random, they're thoughtful things like curiosities and dolls. It's all about a slow, careful process of building trust. But here's the thing, just when you think it's all a rigid set of rules, Vatsyayana hits you with a dose of pure reality. After all these chapters of methodical advice, he basically says, yeah, but sometimes love doesn't play by the rules. It's this amazing, sophisticated little nugget that just shows he totally got both social rules and raw human passion. Now, this might be the most surprising part of the whole book for a lot of people. Its role as a super detailed social guide, especially for figuring out the complicated politics inside a big and sometimes polygamous household. The book lays out a ton of responsibilities for the wife. I mean, she's basically the COO of the entire household. She's in charge of cleaning, gardening, managing the money, and making sure everyone in her husband's family gets along. This wasn't a small job. It was a huge position of power and responsibility. Okay, now this is where it gets really fascinating. The book gives this really practical, almost Machiavellian advice for the head wife in a home with more than one wife. She should be a mentor, treat the younger wife like a sister, treat her kids like her own. But then, get this, she's also supposed to strategically stir up a little trouble with any new favorite to keep her own spot secure and maintain the balance of power. It's an absolutely wild look into the social games of that time. All right, so we've gone on this whole journey, right? From the simple myth of a sex book to the much more complex reality of a guide for life, philosophy, and even social strategy. Let's wrap our heads around what the real Kama Sutra is. And you know what? We're going to end right where we started, with the author's own words. He could not be more clear about this. This book is not just a tool to satisfy your desires. It's a guide for an intelligent and knowing person to find that perfect balance, so they can master their passions instead of being a slave to them and ultimately succeed in, well, everything they do. And that really just leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? Vatsyayana's goal, written nearly 2,000 years ago, was to teach people how to live a life that was balanced, successful, and good. A life filled with purpose, prosperity, and enjoyment. When you strip it all down, is what we're all looking for today really that different?